Dear friends, thank you very much for joining us. A warm welcome from the European Movement's office here in Brussels, where we have the pleasure of hosting the European Commission Vice President, Dubravka Šuica, responsible for democracy and demography. Today's conversation will, of course, center around all things democracy, with a focus on the Conference on the Future of Europe. Vice President, thank you very much for taking the time to join us today. We have an eager audience across Europe who is looking forward to hearing your thoughts on the conference, but also other developments around the future of the European Union. And perhaps, if I may, I would like to start with that. If you could, in about a minute, 60 seconds, tell us what are your main ambitions for the Conference of the Future of Europe? A lot has been said about it, and finally, all the institutions have started the negotiations around the structure of the conference, but we will be very keen to hear what your ambitions are for the conference.
If you give me only 60 seconds, I'll try to remind you why we are doing this conference on the future of Europe. First of all, to give a greater say to the current and future generations of European citizens, then to reflect together on what type of Europe we want, and of course to reconnect with Europe, provide a sense of common identity, give all voices the opportunity to be heard, and empower younger citizens in particular. My ambition is to have an open, inclusive, transparent, and structured debate with the citizens of what the European Union does and what the European Union should do for them. I want to involve in this debate citizens from all walks of life, everyone, particularly those who never engaged with European institutions. Most of all, I want to make sure that the outcome of these debates has a concrete, visible impact for all citizens. I want their voice to be heard and contribute to building our common future. This is my ambitions for the conference.
Fantastic. That's a great way to start off. And I'm glad to hear how central to your vision citizens are. About 12 months ago, we had the European elections, one of the greatest exercise of cross-border democracy in the world, where hundreds of millions of citizens cast their votes and had their voice heard. Since then, a lot has happened, a lot has taken place, and I think the citizens are very keen to be part of that conversation. In your experience, you're a politician who travels around Europe. You have held numerous events since taking office, and you have met a lot of people from across our continent. Which are the issues that they seem to be more eager about when it comes to the future of the European Union?
The biggest challenge will be to make sure that ideas found in local discussions can be meaningfully discussed at the European level and eventually brought to the attention of the democratic institutions of the European Union. So we want to have to listen to different ideas, different hopes, different concerns, proposals, and then to transpose them from local level to European level. This is the biggest challenge. But as you know, we should not preempt any outcome of the conference. This is very important. On the contrary, we must make space for citizens to discuss the topics that they consider to be important. Having already held many dialogues with citizens, I'm convinced that issues such as healthcare now and the European Union's response to the public health crisis will have a prominent role. Before COVID crisis, I couldn't imagine that health would be one of the most important issues, but this is my opinion. As you know, European Parliament, European Council and Commission must lay the ground for the conference by having a joint declaration, and it will set the scope, structure, and the main principles of the conference. As you might know, on 24th of June, Council adopted its position, and before that, this was done by Parliament and the Commission back in January. So we can now discuss together all the key elements needed to launch the conference. And another big challenge is, of course, COVID-19 emergency. Surely no one present online today, I'm sure, no one can imagine the multiple effects of this pandemic across European Union. This crisis shows that democracy and the institutions that underpin this democracy have a key role to play. And we understand that citizens' trust in democracy cannot end and should not ever be taken for granted. COVID-19 has delayed already our plans. As you know, we had planned to launch this conference on Europe Day on 9th of May in Dubrovnik, but it has not changed our determination and our ambition for the conference. So we are more ambitious than we were before. And this is a major pan-European democratic exercise. I'm sure that it will strengthen our representative democracy by offering an opportunity for enhanced deliberative democracy. And this has never been done before, though there were some conventions earlier, but this has never been done before at this large scale. And this is the sign of a new thinking in the European Union.
Indeed. And it's a very welcome one indeed. As we mentioned earlier, our fellow citizens seem keen to be engaged both in the debates around the future of Europe, but also in the decisions that affect them. And you did mention the effect that the pandemic has had on the conference. We had to delay the start of the conference beyond the date was originally envisioned. How do you think will that engagement with citizens take place in the context of the pandemic? Will events and discussions move online? What kind of plans are you putting in place to ensure that citizens are still engaged?
Thank you for this question. You know that we, in our Commission's communication, we propose to set up a multilingual digital platform. And this platform will be a key tool to maximize participation, accessibility, and transparency of the conference. When the pandemic hit Europe and forced millions of citizens in their homes, we stepped up our efforts to make sure we can have ready for the launch an advanced state-of-the-art platform that would allow citizens to engage online, and if physical gatherings should be restricted. The platform will also be a key tool to maximize participation, accessibility, and transparency of the conference. Citizens will be able to access all documentation related to the conference at any moment. Debates will be live streamed, and the outcomes of the debates will be gathered in one place. This is meant to complement and not to replace the real deal. Town hall discussions in all regions and European citizens' dialogues will remain the core of the conference, but still this platform will be also important. And allow me also to insist on the fact that the Conference of the Future of Europe must be representative of geography, gender, age, socioeconomic background, and level of education of citizens. It must also be inclusive of minority populations. All are part of Europeans' diversity. So I'm sure that this will be one of the best democratic exercises ever.
We're glad to hear that you're setting your sights so high, and it is indeed important to be ambitious with this exercise. I wanted to discuss a little bit also the role of organized civil society. There is a wealth of NGOs out there, including the European movement and all our offices around Europe, but also our member organizations, be it trade unions, employers, NGOs, all of them having a direct link with citizens and representing different constituencies. How do you envision their role in the conference? What can they bring to the conference?
Thank you. As I said at the beginning, one of the novelty of the conference is this time we want to reach citizens from all walks of life and corners of the European Union, and particularly those that have never engaged with the European Union institutions. we are sure that we cannot succeed without a strong partnership with society organizations, and I'm pleased to discuss with you today because the European movement, with your pan-European network of pro-European organizations in more than 30 countries, can be an important partner in the conference. Together, we need to find new and creative ways to engage in meaningful discussions with citizens. I see civil society organizations as the bridges that will help connect the Conference on the Future of Europe with the citizens, and I count on your active contribution once the conference is launched. I started consulting experts from the beginning of my mandate. Before COVID-19 hit, I had started a listening tour to engage with citizens and experts in participatory democracy from all over European Union. I had already visited 10 member states and found many successful experiences, such as Bürgerrat in Eupen, the Citizens' Assembly established in Ireland, or the Grand Débat in France. Since the confinement measures, I have continued this tour virtually. I'm looking forward to listen also to your suggestions, for example, on how to design a feedback mechanism, ensuring that what is debated by the citizens can have a concrete impact on European Union policy making. This is a crucial aspect for the success of the conference. So a feedback mechanism is for us of crucial importance.
That is indeed very welcome to hear, because in our experience, citizens want to see the follow-up. They want to see their ideas put in practice, or if that's not possible, at least get feedback of why that wasn't the case. We have plenty of people around Europe engaging in the event and sharing questions on social media. If you don't mind, I'll bring one now, since it's a little bit relevant to what we're discussing. Nicholas from Germany is actually interested in hearing how can we engage citizens from non-EU countries, for example, from accession countries in the Balkans, or even from countries like the UK that decided, unfortunately, to leave our union. Will they have the opportunity to take part in the conversation?
I'm sure that regarding Western Balkans, I'm sure that the citizens of Western Balkans should be involved, and they have to have their say. Because if we are thinking of Western Balkans country joining European Union, how can we talk about the future of Europe without having them? So I'm sure that they will be involved in the Conference of the Future of Europe. Regarding other countries, we'll find a different forum. I'm not at this moment. I cannot answer you precisely regarding UK and some other countries, but Western Balkans for sure will be part of this conference.
That's great to hear. One of the things that was originally built as an issue to be discussed by the conference was electoral reform. And by that, I mean, how do we make our democracy more participatory, especially with the European parliamentary elections in mind? And Jan from the Netherlands would like to know whether there is a possibility to discuss what we call here in Brussels the transnational lists, the ability to vote for a candidate from another country. Are these issues going to feature in the debate, you think, of the conference?
Definitely, as a part of the conference, we should be able to address topics related to democratic processes and institutional matters, notably lead candidate system for the election of the President of the European Commission and transnational lists for elections to the European Parliament. You know that the Commission does not have the competence to table proposals in this field. Its role, the role of Commission, is that of facilitator between European Parliament and the Council in this process. But we stand ready to provide legal and institutional expertise, research on electoral processes, and insight into interinstitutional relations. And it is very important for us. As you know, my colleague Vera Jourova is in charge of this part of the conference. and but we will be cooperating on this. So definitely we have to touch upon lead candidate and transnational lists.
So that's very interesting, because also the delay caused by the pandemic has moved the conference in the middle of the two European elections. So obviously, as we are preparing, as we're approaching 2024, it's a good opportunity to look at the issues like that.
Yeah, I'm sure we cannot approach European elections in 2024 without being sure what do we think about lead candidate system and transnational lists. And of course, COVID delayed everything, but we will still be on time.
Indeed. Which brings me actually to my next question, which is, when do you think the conference will start? Is there progress in the negotiations at the moment? Is there a tentative timetable perhaps on the table that you can share with us?
Well, there is a progress, definitely. After Council adopted its position on 24th of June, then we are ready to start. We start working on joint declaration, and before the launch, we need to define a common approach on how to organize the conference with the view to launching a broad and inclusive process for the exchange with citizens of Europe. As you know, there is a common agreement that we need to start at the first opportunity, and that engaging with European citizens in a broad and inclusive debate on the present and the future of Europe will help us to emerge stronger from the crisis. This is the basis. We hope that we will swiftly find an agreement, and we would like to launch the conference as soon as possible in autumn. But of course, the health and security of our citizens will remain our priority. The evolution of the pandemic will have to be factored in. So we have to see how the situation with COVID-19 will develop, but our goal is to start it in autumn.
Indeed. If I may return a little bit to the role of civil society in this, because one of our colleagues from Spain, actually from the European movement in Spain, is asking about the role of civil society. Will it be an equal actor, just like the European institutions, or will civil society have a more supportive role, according to your plans?
As I said, so Commission, Council, and Parliament are the institutions which will start this with joint declaration. National parliaments, regional parliaments, local authorities, local parliaments, Committee of the Regions, Economic and Social Committee, and NGOs will be our partners. Whoever would like to come on board is welcome. So I think civil society should be also equal partner, and I hope we will manage to organize this. But of course, in coordination with Parliament, because Parliament is very important institution for the conference, because you know that MEPs are elected directly from citizens. But of course, Commission as I said, honest broker or facilitator between these two institutions. And without national parliaments, without regional parliaments, without local authorities, without civil society, this exercise won't be successful.
Very true indeed, and of course we very much agree. I mentioned the European elections at the beginning, and the role the European Parliament plays as the House of Citizens is hugely important, and we are there to support in that sense. If I may touch a little bit on the other side of your portfolio, democracy isn't just the only area you work on. Demography is also your responsibility. So I'll be interested to see what the link between the two is. How does democracy and demography interplay in the context of your work?
It was a question put very. This question was put at the beginning of my mandate, and everybody was asking what is the link between democracy and demography. And if I may say, democracy and demography, they don't exist alone in vacuum. They are cross-cutting and complementary. We must be open to sharing our knowledge based on concrete evidence in our bid to optimize our policy making in the interest of all citizens. By entrusting one commissioner or even vice president of the commission to lead the work of the college in these two areas, President von der Leyen made an interesting connection. And my mission letter highlights the aim of strengthening the links between people and the democratic institutions that serve citizens, people, them, to narrow the gap between expectations and reality, which is also very important. We must find different ways to get to know our citizens better, to establish trust, to establish solidarity, to have a frank exchange on how we can work together, and how we can work better. Knowing the impacts of demographic change contributes to this. An endeavor like the Conference on the Future of Europe is a sign of new thinking at European level. It will provide a new space to engage and involve all Europeans, to discuss key topics, to listen to and to inform. It will complement representative democracy and increase trust in our democratic institutions. The conference comes at a key moment for our democratic institutions. It will help tackle the twin challenge of democracy and demography, and ensure that our systems of government and participation are dynamic, resilient, inclusive, and that they represent the diversity of the society. So democracy, as I said, and demography don't exist alone in vacuum. They are together and cross-cutting.
Very true indeed. If I may ask a bit more personal question, perhaps. You mentioned all the traveling you did since you took office, all the member states you visited, and all the people you engaged with. That obviously wasn't as easy since the pandemic started and the different lockdowns were put in place. How were you able to conduct your work, the very important work that you have to do during those months of the lockdown?
I was so sorry that COVID prevented me from continuing this listening tour, because I saw from the beginning that it is very important to come in contact with citizens in order to try to translate my mission letter into reality. And we had the plan to visit all 27 countries within the first 6 months of my mandate. Unfortunately, I visited only 10 of them. But we started also having citizens dialogues. But as I said, we would like to use citizens dialogues again. But there were many of them before in previous mandate of the Commission, but the citizens didn't have feedback. The feedback is the most important part of this conference and of our work in this mandate. So without giving them feedback, they will only talk and debate, and there won't be any results. So when I visited Bürgerrat in Eupen, as I already told you, when I visited Orléans in France, when I visited some regions in Spain, also in Estonia, in Latvia, I talked directly to citizens, and it was really interesting. And all of them were longing for having such a dialogue with politicians. And as I usually say, politics is not anymore business as usual. It's different. We have to listen and see what do citizens want from us, but not from us. What do they like to have? How do they want to see Europe look like? So it is very important to listen to them and to try to translate their ideas and proposals into concrete politics in the end. And this will be, I'm coming to the beginning of your first question. the major challenge will be how to transpose the ideas and proposals into concrete policies from local and regional level, from civil society to European Union institutions and legislator.
In many ways, the current situation has also presented us with opportunities. One of them is this partnership we're having with the European Commission, where we facilitate conversations with senior figures and citizens around Europe. So we are certainly grateful for that opportunity. But it has also energized a little bit the debate on specific issues. Germany's former finance minister, Mr. Schäuble, recently came and said that maybe this is the opportunity for the EU to consider serious integration at the economic and monetary level. And also, one of our audience on social media is also asking whether this is an opportunity to discuss defense union as well. So, monetary union, defense union, are those really big and often difficult discussions now easier to have after the experience of the last few months?
As I told you, we would not we won't like to preempt the results of this exercise. So we would like to stick to these 6 priorities of the Commission and to strategic agenda of the Council. But since things have been changing all the time, we are open and citizens can raise any issue. So either defense union or new multi-annual financial framework, but it will be over, I hope, until the conference starts. So everything will be on the agenda, and citizens will feel free to raise any item of their concern to the agenda. So this conference, I think, is, as I said, it is more needed than ever now. We haven't expected before this crisis that it would be such necessity to have a conference, but now I'm more than sure that this is a big opportunity to all of us and to restart some issues and to have a different approach than we politicians sometimes used to have.
The European movement includes many organizations, and of course, we have a very strong constituency from youth organizations. And Daniel from the Netherlands, who is involved with one of them, is asking what will be the role of young people in the conference. How can we make sure that their voice is also heard and echoed throughout?
What I haven't mentioned the elderly, but now I'll mention young people. Young people, they are, of course, very important. I don't want to I don't want to say the youngsters are our future, but they are our future. You cannot avoid this fact. So they will live in the future, in that future we are talking about nowadays. So their role will be more than important. And I'm sure there will be a separate or different forum for them to talk about their problems, their ideas, and their visions of the future. So their importance is very, very important. And now when we talk about next generation EU, when we talk about new multi-annual financial framework, we are talking about next decades of grants and loans, and for sure we will have to think about intergenerational solidarity, which means that they will maybe pay some debts for elderly, since elderly were mostly hit during this COVID pandemic. So they are the most important part of our society, but we have to take also into consideration that our elderly have a good life, a healthy life, and as you know, if I don't want to talk about demography now, but as you see, we are living longer. In last 20 years, more than 6 years longer, Europeans are living on average 6 years longer. So someone will have to take into consideration their pensions, their health care, and young people voices will be very important this time, to listen to them and to see if they are ready for this intergenerational solidarity.
Very interesting indeed. Octavian from Belgium, here in Belgium, has an interesting question with regards to the citizens' assemblies. We've seen the use of citizens' assemblies become more frequent over the past few years in Ireland and elsewhere, and more recently in France. Do you think that format of participatory democracy might feature in the context of the conference, or could perhaps be a way forward for engaging citizens more in decisions at the European level?
For sure, this is the reason why I traveled, as I said before COVID, and we started our conversations and exchange of views with experts, especially from Ireland, who have very good expertise. Also with the people from France who had this grand débat. So I'm sure now they are reshuffling their government, but we had very good conversation with their Secretary of State for European Affairs, Amélie Montchalin. So we are trying to use best practice, which is already in some on some local levels. So definitely each and every good or best practice will be incorporated. But as I see, as you might have seen, or as you, Daniel, might have noticed, the European Parliament envisaged different assemblies and different agoras where they will definitely use all these examples from previous or from actual citizens dialogues, conventions, and so we cannot invent something completely new, but we will try to be, as I said, innovative, transparent, and inclusive, which are the main principles of our conference.
You mentioned innovation, and it's something that has come up quite a lot in our conversation today. Obviously, the digital dimension of the conference will be strengthened considerably, and you were quite descriptive of how you plan to do that. Do you think we might find ourselves in a situation, and this is a question coming from David in London, that the conference will be exclusively digital, that we will not be able to have personal contact, but do everything in the digital domain?
I wouldn't like this development, because although digital age is very important, this is one of the priorities of this commission. But Digital Europe, as you know, and now we saw how we use all these digitals during this pandemic. But still, I think that face to face is much better. So it should be a combination. Of course, there will be this multilingual digital platform, and we, of course, every citizens will be connected at any moment with us. But I think that personal gatherings will be also important, and this will mean that we get rid of this coronavirus also.
Yes, we certainly all hope so. If I can bring you back to Brussels, and the effect of the virus has also been felt by the institutions. The European Parliament had difficulties meeting at the beginning. It had to also be innovative in the way it conducted its business during the lockdown. And the same, of course, applied to the leaders, from the heads of state and government, who had to meet at the Council or European Council level digitally. Do you think our democracy suffers from that? From the fact that our MEPs and our leaders in the European Council cannot meet in person?
Regarding Commission, at the beginning we had our college every Wednesday in digitally. We were teleworking, but little by little we started meeting in person. regarding European Council and heads of government, I wouldn't say that our democracy suffers. This is the state of play, and this is something which is unprecedented in our history and in European history. And we didn't have, so this was the only way. So I think that we showed how digital is important and how we have to improve all these techniques. So thanks to this, our democracy was going on. But of course, as I said, it is much better to meet in person if possible. But I hope that the next European Council on 17th and 18th of July will be in person.
Indeed. I'm sure so do they. The opportunity to travel to Brussels must be one of the highlights. But if I just ask one last question, and this has to do a bit with your personal ambition about Europe's tomorrow. Obviously, the conference will provide a lot of us to engage in that conversation. But before we conclude, it will be interesting to hear what is your ambition for Europe? What kind of Europe are you working for as a convinced pro-European who has devoted a lot of her career in the European project?
I would say Europe that works for people, that works for its citizens, Europe which is less bureaucratic, more democratic, and as I said, inclusive, transparent, and I'm sure that this conference will help all of us, both citizens and us politicians who are citizens at the same moment, at the same time. So I'm sure that we will be closer to citizens, and this is my ambition to try to translate their wishes, concerns, hopes, proposals, ideas into concrete policies which can help and make their lives better and more prosperous.
Thank you very much. We are grateful for all the time you have given us. We know you have a busy schedule, so we don't want to keep you longer than we should. I would like to thank you very much for the opportunity to talk to you. We've had the chance to work together closely since you took office, and we look forward to doing much more together.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you all to you and all participants, and looking forward to see you in person, regardless of all these digital opportunities. Thank you once again, and we'll be in touch.
Indeed, the feeling is mutual. And I would also like to take the opportunity to thank all of you who joined us today, and both those that asked questions and those that didn't. Apologies if we were not able to take all the questions, but the conversation continues. Please stay engaged with the European movement, either through our social media platforms or our members in our national offices throughout Europe. We are here to work together for the future of Europe, and we're looking forward to doing it together. Have a nice afternoon and speak to you soon. Thank you.